The diner was quiet that night. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind where people speak less and watch more. Outside, the rain was slow and cold. Inside, yellow lights flickered above old tables. A few customers sat alone, eating in silence. Then the door opened. An elderly black woman stepped inside. She was slow, very slow. One hand held a worn-out walking cane. The other held a small, old handbag pressed close to her chest. Her back was bent. Her legs shook with every step. Her clothes were clean but old. Her shoes were broken at the sides. Her face showed years of pain and patience. Some people looked at her. Some looked away. No one smiled. She walked carefully to an empty table near the wall. It took her a long time to sit down. She breathed deeply when she finally did. The waitress came. "What do you want?" she asked, not unkind but not warm either. The old woman spoke softly. "Just soup, please." The waitress nodded and walked away. The woman placed her cane beside the table. Her hands trembled as she rested them on her lap. She looked tired but calm. Then the door slammed open again. This time, the sound was loud. 5 men walked in together. They were big, loud, rough. Their boots hit the floor hard. Their voices filled the diner like smoke. They laughed. They pushed chairs aside. They did not care who was watching. People felt it instantly. Trouble. One of the men noticed the old woman. He nudged his friend and smirked. "Yo, look at that," he said. The others turned. They saw her cane, her weak body, her quiet face. They smiled. Not kind smiles. One of them walked closer. Too close. "Hey, Grandma," he said loudly. "Why are you walking like that?" The diner went silent. No one laughed. No one spoke. The old woman looked down. "I just want to eat," she said quietly. The man laughed. "Did you hear that?" he said to his friends. "She wants to eat." Another thug pulled a chair and sat near her without asking. He kicked her cane slightly. It fell to the floor. The sound echoed. The woman froze. She looked at the cane on the ground, but she did not bend to pick it up. Her hands shook harder now. "Please," she whispered, "leave me alone." The men laughed again. One of them grabbed the edge of her table and shook it. Her soup spilled. Hot liquid ran over the table and onto the floor. She gasped, not from pain, but from fear. A customer pulled out a phone and started recording. Another customer stood up, then slowly sat back down. No one helped. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she did not cry. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if she was remembering something, or someone. One thug leaned close to her face. "Where your family at?" he asked. "Who gonna help you?" The diner felt colder. The old woman opened her eyes. They were not angry. They were not weak. They were calm. She reached into her handbag slowly. The men watched carefully. Everyone watched. She did not pull out money. She did not pull out a weapon. She pulled out an old phone. Cracked screen. Faded case. Her fingers trembled as she pressed one button. She held the phone to her ear, and then she spoke. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "They are hurting me." The line went quiet. The thugs laughed again, but something had changed. The air felt heavy now, thick. Outside, engines could be heard. One car, then another. Headlights flashed through the diner windows. The laughter slowly stopped. The old woman lowered the phone. She looked up, and for the first time that night, she was not afraid. The diner was no longer calm. It was holding its breath. The 5 men stood around the old woman like shadows. Their laughter was loud, careless, and cruel. One of them clapped his hands. "You hear that?" he said. She called someone. The others laughed harder. "Who's she calling?" Another thug asked. "Her ghost husband?" The old woman said nothing. Her phone was still in her hand. Her fingers were shaking, but her face was steady. One thug bent down and picked up her cane from the floor. He twirled it in the air like a toy. "You need this to walk, right?" he mocked. Then he threw it across the diner. It hit the wall and fell. The sound was sharp. The old woman flinched. She tried to stand. Her legs failed her. She held the table to stay up. A customer stood up from his seat. "Hey man, that's enough," he said softly. One thug turned and stared at him. "What are you gonna do?" the thug asked. The customer sat back down. Silence returned. The waitress watched from behind the counter. Her hands shook as she held a plate. She wanted to help, but fear froze her feet. One thug grabbed the old woman's soup bowl. He looked inside and made a face. "This all you can afford?" he said. "Sod." He dumped the soup on the floor. The liquid spread like a dark stain. The old woman's eyes followed it. That soup was her dinner. Maybe her only meal today. Her lips trembled. Still, she did not scream. She slowly lowered herself back into the chair. Her shoulders dropped, not in defeat, but in deep tiredness. She had lived a long life. She had faced worse than this. One thug leaned close. "So tell me, Grandma," he whispered, "why you still alive?" The words cut deep. Her eyes filled with tears, but she wiped them away quickly. "I raised my son," she said quietly. "That is why." The men laughed again. "Son," one said. "Where he at now?" "Probably forgot her," another added. The old woman looked down. "No," she said. "He didn't." The door outside slammed shut. Everyone heard it. Then footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Coming closer. The thugs paused. One of them glanced toward the door. "It's nothing," he said. "Probably just rain." But then came another sound. Engines. Not one. Two. Then three. Low and powerful. Headlights flashed again through the windows. This time brighter. The laughter faded. One thug frowned. "Who that?" he asked. The old woman lifted her head. Her face was calm now. Too calm. She placed her phone gently on the table. "I told him where I was," she said. The men stared at her. "Who?" one asked. She did not answer. The diner door opened slightly, then closed again. Someone was outside, watching, waiting. One thug walked toward the window and looked out. His smile disappeared. "What you see?" another thug asked. The man swallowed. "Cars," he said slowly. "Black cars." Another thug laughed nervously. "So what?" he said. "Means nothing." But his voice shook. The old woman closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. Memories filled her mind. Her son as a child, holding her hand, promising never to leave her. She opened her eyes again. The door opened fully this time. A tall figure stood in the doorway. The light behind him made his face hard to see. The diner went silent. The man stepped inside. One step, then another. He was calm, strong, focused. His eyes went straight to the old woman. He did not look at the thugs. Not yet. He walked slowly toward her table. The thugs stepped back without thinking. Their bodies reacted before their minds did. The man stopped beside the old woman. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mom," he said softly. Her eyes filled with tears. Not of fear, of relief. The thugs froze. Every single one of them. Because now, they understood. The diner felt smaller now. No one moved. No one spoke. The tall man stood beside the old woman, his hand still resting on her shoulder. He did not rush. He did not shout. That scared them more. The five men looked at each other, unsure. Their smiles were gone. Their bodies were tense. One of them tried to laugh. "So, this your son?" he said. His voice cracked at the end. The man did not answer. He slowly pulled a chair and sat beside his mother. He picked up a napkin and gently wiped soup from her hands. "You okay?" he asked her softly. She nodded. "They were loud," she said. "But I'm okay now." The man closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them again, they were different. Cold. Focused. He stood up. Now he faced the five men. Still, he said nothing. That silence was heavy. One thug cleared his throat. "Look, man, we were just joking," he said quickly. "No big deal." The man took one slow step forward. The thug stepped back without thinking. "You spilled her food," the man said calmly. "You broke her peace." His voice was low but strong. Another thug laughed nervously. "She old, man. She fine." The man tilted his head slightly. "You think old means weak?" he asked. No one answered. The man looked around the diner. He saw the spilled soup on the floor, the broken cane against the wall, the phone recording in someone's hand. He looked back at the men. "You picked the wrong table," he said. One thug tried to act brave. "You threatening us?" The man smiled. Not a happy smile. "No," he said. "I'm giving you time." The men did not like that. One of them reached into his jacket. The diner gasped. The man's eyes moved instantly. "Don't," he said. Just one word. The thug froze. Something in the man's voice stopped him. The man pulled out his own phone. He did not dial right away. He looked at the thugs again. "My mother raised me alone," he said. "She worked 2 jobs. She skipped meals so I could eat. The old woman looked up at him. Her eyes were full. She taught me respect, he continued. And patience. He paused. But she also taught me when patience ends. He tapped his phone once. Outside, engines turned off. Doors opened. Heavy doors. Footsteps approached. Many footsteps. The 5 men looked at each other again. Fear was clear now. One of them whispered, "Who is this guy?" The diner door opened. 2 large men walked in. Then another. They were calm, quiet, professional. They stood near the door, watching. The man turned to his mother. "Stay seated," he said gently. "I'll handle this." One thug raised his hands. "Man, we don't want problems," he said. "Let's just forget this." The man looked at him. "You already made it a problem," he replied. The waitress finally spoke. They've attacked her," she said shakily. Everyone saw. The man nodded. "Good," he said, "because I want everyone to remember." He looked at the men again. "You laughed at her," he said. "You touched her. You broke her cane." Each word felt like a weight. One thug dropped to a chair. Another wiped sweat from his face. Sirens could be heard now. Far away, but getting closer. The man's phone buzzed. He checked it once. Then he put it away. "You should sit down," he told the thugs. "Running will make it worse." None of them ran. They couldn't. The door opened again. Police officers entered the diner. The mood shifted completely. Authority filled the room. The officers looked at the scene. The spilled food. The frightened faces. The old woman. The man stepped aside. "That's my mother," he said. "She was attacked." The officers nodded. They had already seen enough. One by one, the 5 men were cuffed. No more laughter. No more jokes. Only silence. The old woman held her son's hand. "You came," she whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. "I promised," he said. The diner watched as the men were taken away. The balance had changed. Forever. The police lights painted the diner walls red and blue. No one spoke. The 5 men sat in cuffs, heads down, breathing fast. Their bodies were still, but their fear was loud. The old woman remained seated. Her son stood beside her, calm and steady. One police officer stepped closer. "Ma'am," he said gently, "can you tell me what happened?" The old woman looked at her hands. Before she could speak, her son raised his hand. "I'll explain," he said. His voice was clear, confident. The officer nodded. The man pointed to the spilled soup on the floor. "They mocked her," he said. "They touched her. They knocked her cane away." The officer looked around. Several people nodded. One customer stepped forward. "I recorded everything," he said. "I didn't help, but I recorded." The man looked at him. "Next time," he said calmly. "Help first." The customer lowered his head. The officer took the phone and watched the video. His face changed. "That's enough," the officer said. "These men are in serious trouble." One of the thugs suddenly spoke. "You don't know who you're messing with," he said angrily. "You think you big?" The officer turned. "Sit down," he ordered. The thug fell silent. The officer then turned to the son. "Sir, can I have your name?" The man paused. Then he spoke. "My name is Marcus Reed." The name hit the room like thunder. The waitress gasped. One customer whispered, "Wait, Marcus Reed?" Another shook his head slowly. "No way." The officer's eyes widened slightly. "Marcus Reed," he repeated, "as in, Reed Security Group?" Marcus nodded once. "That's me." The diner exploded into whispers. Reed Security Group. Everyone knew that name. They protected banks, hospitals, government buildings. Marcus Reed was not just a businessman. He was powerful. One of the thugs looked up suddenly. Fear rushed across his face. You own that company?" he stammered. Marcus looked at him. "Yes," he said simply. The thug swallowed hard. Another thug began to shake. "We didn't know," he said quickly. "If we knew, we—" Marcus raised his hand. "No," he said. "You knew enough." He walked to his mother and knelt beside her. "This woman," he said to the room, "cleaned offices for years. She raised me when no one helped her. She taught me respect." He stood again. "You didn't attack a poor old woman," he said. "You attacked the reason I exist." Silence filled the diner. The officer cleared his throat. "Sir," he said, "we'll need you to come to the station later for a statement." Marcus nodded. "Of course." The officer turned to the old woman. "Ma'am, would you like medical help?" She smiled gently. "No," she said. "I have my son." The officer smiled back. That's good. Outside, neighbors had gathered. Phones were out. Whispers spread. Those men attacked her. That's Marcus Reed's mother. They're done. The thugs were lifted to their feet. One of them looked at the old woman. I'm sorry, he said quietly. She looked at him. I hope you learn, she replied. The words hurt more than anger. As the police led the men out, the diner felt different. Lighter. Ashamed. The owner walked over slowly. I'm sorry, he said to the old woman. I should have done more. She nodded. Next time, she said softly, do better. Marcus placed his jacket over his mother's shoulders. Let's go, he said. They walked toward the door together. People stepped aside. Respect filled the room now. As they reached the exit, Marcus stopped. He turned back. Remember this, he said calmly. Kindness costs nothing. Then they left. Outside, rain washed the street clean. But inside the diner, nothing would ever be the same. By morning, the story was everywhere. Phones buzzed. Screens lit up. A short video from the diner spread fast. Very fast. People watched the 5 men laughing. People watched the old woman shaking. People watched the moment her son walked in. The comments were angry. This is sick. How could they do that? That woman could be anyone's mother. News channels picked it up. The headline was simple. Elderly woman attacked at diner. Son revealed as security CEO. The 5 men sat in separate jail cells. No more jokes. No more loud voices. Only cold walls and heavy silence. One of them covered his face with his hands. Another paced back and forth. They all said the same thing in their minds. If only we had walked away. At the courthouse, people gathered. Not to support the men, but to watch. To judge. The old woman arrived slowly, holding her son's arm. She wore a simple blue dress. Nothing fancy. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Ma'am, how do you feel? Do you forgive him? She did not answer. Marcus stood beside her. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Inside the courtroom, the air was heavy. The 5 men were brought in. They avoided looking up. Everyone recognized them. The judge entered. The room stood. Then silence. The video played on a large screen. Every word, every laugh, every push. The courtroom watched. Some people shook their heads. One woman wiped her tears. The judge looked at the men. Is this how you treat the weak? He asked. None of them answered. The old woman was asked to speak. She stood slowly. The room waited. I am old, she said softly. I am slow. I am not rich. She paused. But I am human. The words hit hard. She looked at the men. You hurt me, she said. But more than that, you showed the world who you are. She sat down. Silence followed. The judge sighed. These actions were cruel, he said. And they were public. He announced the charges. Assault, harassment, hate-related behavior. Bail was denied. The men's faces dropped. Outside the court, more news waited. The men's names were released. Jobs were lost the same day. One was fired. One was suspended. One was dropped by his family. Their phones rang nonstop. Not with support. With anger. At the diner, the owner closed early. He placed a sign on the door. We failed her. We will do better. People came by to leave flowers. Small notes. Stay strong. You matter. The old woman returned home that evening. She sat in her small living room. Quiet again. Marcus brought her tea. You didn't have to speak, he said gently. She smiled. I wanted to, she replied. She looked at him. You became a good man. He nodded. Because of you. On social media, the video kept spreading. But now, people shared something else too. Messages about respect. About helping elders. About speaking up. Schools talked about it. Churches talked about it. The 5 men watched the news from jail. They saw themselves on the screen. Not strong. Not feared. Small. One of them whispered, we ruined our lives. Another replied, no, we showed who we were. The court date was set. Justice was moving. Slow, but steady. And everyone knew this was not the end. The courtroom was full again. This time, it was quiet for a different reason. No whispers. No phones. Everyone understood what this day meant. The 5 men stood in a straight line before the judge. Their shoulders were low. Their faces looked tired. Weeks in jail had changed them. They were not laughing now. They were not loud. They looked small. The old woman entered slowly, leaning on a new cane. Marcus walked beside her. This cane was strong, unbreakable. People stood as they passed. Respect filled the room. The judge entered and sat down. This court is now in session, he said. He looked directly at the 5 men. You had time to think, he said. You had time to reflect. He paused. Did you? One man swallowed hard. Yes, Your Honor, he said softly. The judge nodded. The prosecutor spoke. She described the night at the diner. The fear, the humiliation. She played the video again. Even now, it was painful to watch. Then she spoke about the damage. Not just physical, she said, but human. The defense tried to speak, but their words were weak. Excuses did not work anymore. The judge turned to the old woman. Ma'am, he said gently, do you wish to speak? She stood slowly. Her hands were steady now. I am not here for revenge, she said. I am here for truth. She looked at the men. You laughed because you thought I was nothing, she said. But everyone is something. Her voice was calm. That night hurt, she continued. But what hurt more was being ignored. Many people lower their heads. She finished. I hope you learn, she said, so you don't hurt someone else. She sat down. The judge closed his eyes for a moment. Then he spoke. For your actions, he said, this court finds you guilty. The room felt heavy. He announced the sentences. Community service, anger counseling, jail time, different for each man, but none of them walked free. One man broke down and cried. Another shook his head slowly. The judge ended with one final sentence. Respect is not optional, he said. It is required. Outside the courtroom, the sun was bright, but the men were taken away again. Their lives were changed forever. Marcus held his mother's hand. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Yes, she said. I feel lighter. Reporters surrounded them. Marcus raised his hand. No more questions, he said. Let this be a lesson. At home, the old woman placed her new cane near the door. She sat by the window. She watched people pass. Some waved. Some smiled. She was no longer invisible. Marcus prepared to leave. I have work, he said, but I'll call. She smiled. I know, she said. As he left, she whispered prayer. For strength. For kindness. In jail, one of the men stared at the ceiling. He replayed the night again and again. The laughter, the fear. He finally understood. Not all lessons come gently. Some come hard. And once learned, they can never be forgotten. Life slowly returned to normal. But for many people, normal was not the same anymore. The old woman woke up early that morning. Sunlight came through her small window. Birds sang outside. She sat up slowly and reached for her cane. The new one. Strong. Steady. She smiled. She walked to the kitchen and made tea. Her hands did not shake as much now. Something inside her had changed. She was not afraid anymore. Later that day, she walked outside. Neighbors noticed her. Some waved. Some stopped to talk. One young woman hugged her. You're brave, she said. The old woman smiled gently. I just lived, she replied. Across town, Marcus stood in his office. Tall glass windows. Quiet power. But his mind was not on work. He thought about the diner. About how many people looked away. He made a decision. That same week, Marcus started a program. Free security training for small diners. Helplines for elderly people. Support for those who felt invisible. He did not announce it loudly. He just did it. Because his mother taught him that real strength is quiet. The diner changed too. A new sign was placed on the wall. Respect lives here. The staff was trained. Rules were clear. People noticed. The place felt warmer now. One evening, the old woman returned. Not alone. Marcus walked beside her. The room went silent again. But this time, it was a good silence. People smiled. The waitress rushed over. Your meal is on us, she said. The old woman shook her head. No, she said kindly. Let me pay. She placed money on the table. Her hands were steady. She sat tall. She was not weak. Not anymore. In jail, one of the men watched a small TV. The story played again. But this time, the focus was different. Not on hate. On change. He looked down at his hands. He whispered to himself. I didn't know. But now, he did. Some lessons come late. But they still matter. Weeks passed. Then months. The story slowly faded from the news. But it stayed in people's hearts. Parents told their children. Teachers shared it in class. See that old woman? That could be anyone. One afternoon, the old woman sat on a park bench. A little boy ran past and fell. She stood slowly and helped him up. "Be careful," she said softly. The boy smiled. "Thank you, Grandma." She watched him run back to his mother. Her eyes filled with tears, not from pain, from peace. Marcus sat beside her. "You changed many lives," he said. She shook her head. "No," she replied. "They changed themselves." She looked at him. "Promise me something," she said. "Always protect the weak," he said. She smiled. "No," she corrected him. "Teach people not to attack them." Marcus nodded. "I promise." The sun began to set. Golden light touched her face. She closed her eyes. For the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Not because of power, not because of fear, but because people finally saw her. And somewhere deep inside every person who heard her story, a quiet voice spoke. Respect people, because you never know who they are or who loves them.